After days of silence, the family of former President Edgar Lungu has finally spoken, and what they revealed has the whole nation stunned. This is the moment Zambia has been waiting for. Just in, the family of late President Edgar Chagwa Lungu has officially spoken, breaking their silence following his tragic death. In an emotional and revealing statement, the family shares their true feelings, frustrations, and expectations regarding the handling of his funeral, the national mourning, and how the government has responded. This powerful message has left many Zambians emotional, with reactions pouring in from politicians, citizens, and global leaders alike. What does this mean for Zambia's unity, and how will the government respond next? Watch this emotional update now and hear what the Lungu family had to say. Uncut and unfiltered. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for the latest on the legacy and farewell of Edgar Chagwa Lungu, a nation in mourning and dispute. Introduction. The passing of Edgar Chagwa Lungu, Zambia's 6th Republican president, has cast a long, somber shadow across the nation. A figure both revered and debated in political circles, Lungu's death on June 5, 2025, in a South African hospital triggered a national outpouring of emotion and quickly controversy. While tributes poured in from political peers, citizens, and world leaders alike, the late president's family issued a bold and emotional statement criticizing the government's handling of the state funeral. Their words, brimming with frustration and dignity, opened a floodgate of public conversation. What does respect for the departed truly mean? Can national unity prevail when grief turns political? And what legacy does Edgar Lungu leave behind in such a storm? This article traces the events surrounding Lungu's death and the evolving dispute over his funeral, while exploring what this moment reveals about Zambia's political climate and collective memory. 1. The announcement and initial reactions. The news of Lungu's death came as a blow to many. The former president, known for his firm leadership style and deep influence over the Patriotic Front (PF), was receiving treatment in South Africa when he reportedly suffered cardiac complications. President Hakainde Hichilema, who succeeded him in 2021 after a fiercely contested election, issued a national address extending condolences to Lungu's family and announcing 7 days of national mourning. Flags were lowered to half-mast. Political observers noted a brief window of unity. PF and United Party for National Development (UPND) leaders stood together in grief, at least on the surface. Citizens across Lusaka, Ndola, and Kitwe lit candles and sang solemn hymns. Churches held special vigils and Catholic masses in remembrance. Internationally, tributes arrived from the African Union (SADC) and former heads of state such as Nigeria's Goodluck Jonathan and South Africa's Cyril Ramaphosa. Yet even as these messages rolled in, murmurs of discontent from Lungu's inner circle began to seep into public view. The funeral arrangements, many close to the former leader claimed, were being mishandled. A silence from the family gave way to suspense, until, just days later, that silence was shattered by a fiery declaration that would change the course of the memorial entirely. 2. The family's statement, a call for respect and autonomy. What began as quiet mourning soon turned into a passionate declaration. On June 8, 2025, 3 days after President Lungu's death, the family broke their silence from South Africa. The statement, delivered by family spokesperson and lawyer Makibi Zulu, was raw, defiant, and deeply personal. It rejected what they described as the government's arrogant and uncoordinated approach to honoring the late president's final wishes. Zulu claimed that President Lungu had clearly expressed his desire for a strictly private, family-controlled funeral, free from political interference, especially from those he considered adversaries during his life. In their words, allowing President Hakainde Hichilema to participate would betray the legacy and dignity Lungu worked to preserve. The family also accused government officials of disregarding prior agreements about the funeral's format, timing, and location, instead pushing ahead with decisions that placed political optics above personal respect. Their statement, lasting over 15 minutes, was streamed on national television and across social media platforms, instantly igniting debate across Zambia and beyond. Tears welled in the eyes of PF loyalists who gathered at party offices to watch the broadcast. For them, it was a validation of growing fears that their leader's death was being used as a political pageant. At the core of their outrage was a plea: let Lungu rest in peace, not as a political figure, but as a father, husband, and servant of Zambia who deserved a dignified farewell on his own terms. The family reiterated that they were not refusing a state funeral, but rather demanding one that aligned with the spirit and values of the man they loved. The speech ended with a resonant call: this is not about politics, this is about truth. Let those who claim to honor him first honor his wishes. Shall we move into section 3, the government's response? This is where the tension really begins to play out on a national stage. Or, if you'd prefer, I can craft a sidebar piece on Lungu's legacy or spotlight the family's broader role in Zambian society. Just say the word and we'll keep this narrative flowing. 3. Government's response, a plea for unity. The Zambian government, caught off guard by the family's fiery statement, responded with a mixture of diplomacy, resolve, and quiet frustration. On June 9, 2025, Minister of Information and Media, Honorable Cornelius Mwitwa, held a press briefing at State House, addressing the growing tensions surrounding the funeral. He began by expressing continued condolences to the Lungu family, stating that the government fully recognized the emotional weight of the moment and the need to honor the late president's legacy with dignity. This is not a time for division, Mwitwa said. This is a time to honor a statesman statesman who served Zambia at one of its most critical junctures. However, the government also clarified its position that the funeral of a former head of state must include the input of the state, not just as a matter of protocol, but as a national responsibility. Officials argued that the arrangements being made were not about political grandstanding, but about giving President Lungu the respect he was owed as a former commander-in-chief. Behind the scenes, sources within the office of the president revealed that attempts had been made to consult with the family early on, but delays and disagreements had stalled progress. Hichilema's administration emphasized that contrary to accusations, the president had not planned to overshadow the occasion and was willing to observe the funeral respectfully, even in a limited or non-speaking role. The government then proposed a compromise, a joint funeral committee composed of family members, state officials, and clergy that would oversee the remaining events. They also extended an offer to move parts of the funeral to Machinga province, Lungu's birthplace, in line with what they believed were his wishes. Yet for all the conciliatory language, the government's tone carried an unmistakable undertone. The unity of Zambia must not be held hostage to politics or personal conflict. We are committed to peace, to healing, and to honoring President Lungu, it was stated. But that must be done in a way that reflects our identity as one Zambia, one nation. 4. The political undercurrents. While the nation publicly grieves, the undercurrent of political friction surrounding Edgar Lungu's funeral has exposed deep fault lines within Zambia's democratic fabric. The dispute is not solely about funeral logistics. It has also become a canvas for years of unresolved tension between two powerful political entities, the Patriotic Front, PF, Lungu's party, and the United Party for National Development, UPND, now in power under President Hakainde Hichilema. The rivalry between these parties runs deep. Lungu and Hichilema were more than political opponents. They represented clashing visions for Zambia's future. Their bitter 2021 election battle, fueled by allegations of intimidation, corruption, and economic mismanagement, left behind bruised institutions and polarized communities. While Hichilema's victory was internationally lauded as a triumph for democracy, PF loyalists have long argued that Lungu was unfairly vilified. It's in this context that the funeral controversy takes on additional weight. Many in PF see the government's handling of Lungu's passing not as a mistake, but as a calculated attempt to control the narrative and dim his legacy. Meanwhile, UPND supporters feel the family's resistance is rooted in lingering bitterness and an unwillingness to acknowledge the nation's democratic transition. The media landscape has mirrored this divide. Pro-PF outlets have accused the state of using public mourning to score political points, pointing to the slow coordination with Lungu's family as disrespectful and politically insensitive. On the other hand, UPND-affiliated commentators have praised President Hichilema's restraint and called on the public to rise above what they see as manufactured drama. Street-level sentiment is equally divided. In urban centers like Lusaka, citizens engage in heated debates at bus stations, markets, and churches. Was Lungu's leadership truly heroic or a relic of a turbulent past? Is the state seeking genuine reconciliation or merely symbolism? One thing is clear: the late president's funeral has unwittingly become a referendum not only on his legacy, but also on Zambia's present and future political culture. 5. Public sentiment and media coverage. As the official ceremonies faltered and tensions flared between the government and Lungu's family, the pulse of the nation could be felt not in State House, but in the voices of ordinary Zambians. On community radio stations in Chipata, late-night television talk shows in Lusaka, church pulpits in Solwezi, and on the bustling online streets of Facebook and TikTok, Zambia spoke. Public opinion has split sharply. For many Patriotic Front (PF) supporters, the family's emotional statement struck a resonant chord. Outside party offices, mourners gathered not only to sing and pray, but also to protest. Handmade posters bore messages like "Respect his legacy" and "Let the family lead." Some view the government's role as performative, accusing officials of trying to rewrite history under the guise of protocol. But others, particularly younger voters and urban dwellers, have taken a different tone. They argue that President Hakainde Hichilema's administration has handled an unenviable situation with remarkable restraint, trying to offer a unifying moment to a grieving nation. On social media, trending hashtags like #ZambiaMourns and #LunguLegacy have become platforms for thoughtful exchanges and, at times, heated arguments. Some religious leaders, too, have weighed in. Bishop Edward Mutal of the Catholic Church called for compassion over confrontation, urging both sides to seek reconciliation. "We bury more than a body. We bury old divisions," he said in a homily in Kasama. His message went viral, echoed in Sunday sermons across denominations and districts. Meanwhile, the media's role in shaping these narratives has been double-edged. State-affiliated outlets have leaned heavily on themes of national unity, broadcasting images of unity walks, candlelit vigils, and messages from foreign dignitaries. Independent newspapers and blogs, however, have been more critical, highlighting missteps in protocol, the absence of key family voices at planning meetings, and inconsistencies in official statements. Zambians in the diaspora have also joined the chorus. Memorial services were held in Johannesburg, London, and New York, where emigrants shared memories of the Lungu era, both glowing and critical. "Even in death, Lungu is making us confront our identity as a nation," one speaker said at a memorial event in Washington, D.C. "Beneath all the noise lies a shared pain, and a hope that this storm might give rise to something more enduring, a deeper conversation about how Zambia honors its leaders, confronts its past, and walks the fragile road of democracy together. 6. The path forward. Can consensus be reached? In the wake of emotional statements, political echoes, and nationwide reflection, one question looms large. Where does Zambia go from here? With both the Lungu family and the government standing firm in their positions, a pathway to consensus has proven difficult but not impossible. Senior members of the clergy, including leaders from the Council of Churches in Zambia (CCZ) and the Evangelical Fellowship, have stepped forward to mediate behind the scenes. They've called for calm and dialogue, reminding both parties that Zambia's strength has always rested in its ability to rise above division. Encouragingly, there have been small but significant signs of compromise. Members of the Lungu family have met with a joint delegation of government and PF officials in a private session facilitated by Archbishop Paul Muna. While the details remain undisclosed, insiders hint at a softening of tone from both ends. The revised funeral program, now inclusive of certain family preferences, such as private rites in Machinga and a reduced formal role for government officials, has been tentatively accepted. Beyond logistics, however, the real work lies in healing political wounds, generational rifts, and the nation's relationship with its own democratic story. Lungu's death, painful and politically charged, has reopened conversations about how Zambia honors its leaders, those remembered with reverence and those remembered with complexity. Youth-led civic groups have called for the establishment of a National Leadership Memorial Commission, not just to oversee funerals, but to document legacies, promote nonpartisan reflection, and safeguard national unity in moments of loss. We cannot afford for the deaths of our leaders to divide us, one activist wrote. Let their endings strengthen our beginning. As the nation prepares to finally lay Edgar Chagwa Lungu to rest, the eyes of millions turn inward, not only toward the man who was, but toward the Zambia that will be. Whether history remembers this moment as one of division or one of reconciliation may depend less on speeches and ceremonies and more on what comes next. In the words of Lungu himself from his farewell address in 2021, Zambia is bigger than any of us. Let that truth guide you always. Public and political reactions. A nation divided? The Lungu family statement has elicited a flood of reactions across Zambia and beyond, reflecting the polarized sentiments surrounding the former president's legacy. On X, Zambians have expressed a mix of empathy for the family, anger at perceived government insensitivity, and calls for reconciliation. Some users praised the family's courage in speaking out, with one post stating, "The Lungu family deserves respect. This is their time to grieve, not to fight with the government." Others, however, urged the family to accept a state funeral, arguing that Lungu's public service warrants a national send-off. Politicians from both the ruling United Party for National Development (UPND) and the opposition PF have weighed in. PF leaders have rallied behind the family, accusing the government of politicizing the funeral. Meanwhile, UPND officials have defended their actions, emphasizing their commitment to a state funeral that honors Lungu's contributions. The involvement of international figures, such as Malawi's Dr. Bakili Maluzi, has added a diplomatic dimension, with regional leaders calling for a resolution that respects both the family's wishes and Zambia's traditions. Globally, condolence messages from heads of state and international organizations have highlighted Lungu's role in fostering regional cooperation during his presidency from 2015 to 2021. These messages have also amplified pressure on the Zambian government to handle the funeral with utmost sensitivity to avoid further controversy. Implications for Zambia's unity. The ongoing dispute and the family's public statement raise critical questions about Zambia's ability to unite during a time of national mourning. Lungu's presidency was marked by both achievements and controversies, including economic challenges and allegations of democratic backsliding, which continue to polarize public opinion. The funeral arrangements have become a flashpoint for these underlying tensions, with some fearing that prolonged disagreements could deepen political divisions. The family's call for unity, echoed by government officials like Patrick Kangwa, offers a potential pathway forward. However, achieving this will require compromise and transparent communication. Analysts suggest that the government could rebuild trust by prioritizing the family's input in funeral planning and ensuring that the process reflects Lungu's legacy as a unifying figure despite political differences. Moreover, the public's emotional response to the family statement underscores the need for a healing process that transcends politics. Community leaders, civil society organizations, and religious figures could play a pivotal role in fostering dialogue and promoting reconciliation, ensuring that Lungu's passing becomes an opportunity for national reflection rather than conflict. The government's next steps, a delicate balancing act. As Zambia awaits the government's response to the family statement, all eyes are on President Hakainde Hichilema's administration. The government faces the challenge of balancing its obligation to honor a former president with the need to respect the family's wishes. Key steps could include renewed dialogue, engaging the family in private consultations to address their concerns and agree on a funeral program that incorporates both private and state elements. Transparency, communicating clearly with the public about the funeral arrangements to dispel rumors and build trust. Inclusivity, ensuring that the mourning process involves all stakeholders, including opposition parties, traditional leaders, and civil society, to reinforce national unity. unity. Sensitivity, avoiding actions that could be perceived as politicizing the funeral, such as unilateral decisions on the repatriation or burial process. The government's handling of this situation will likely shape public perception of its leadership and commitment to unity, with long-term implications for Zambia's political landscape. Conclusion: a time for healing. The Lungu family's emotional statement has brought Zambia to a crossroads where grief, politics, and national identity intersect. As the nation mourns Edgar Chagwa Lungu, the path forward lies in honoring his legacy through a funeral that respects his family's wishes, upholds his contributions, and unites Zambians in shared sorrow. The government's response in the coming days will be pivotal in determining whether this moment strengthens Zambia's resolve to heal or deepens its divisions. For now, Zambians continue to share their grief and hopes on platforms like X, with the family's words serving as a powerful reminder of the need for compassion and respect in times of loss. As one X user poignantly noted, "Let us mourn our president with dignity, for in his passing we are all Zambians first."